of the major symptoms that I experienced that I'm in no doubt was associated with my fight against anxiety was that of gut stress. Now what I mean by gut stress, guys, is that level of anxiety I was experiencing at any particular time would reflect in how my IBS or acid reflux systems or bloating was being experienced in my body. In fact, my stomach issues became that bad that the whole experience led me to eventually study nutrition and the effects that certain foods have on the body. So what can you expect in today's coaching video? Well, I'm going to be highlighting 12 different food types that can be linked to IBS. There's a however in this though, and understand this. The specific foods that trigger IBS are different from people to people. So it's not always possible, in fact it's not possible, to draw up a single list of foods to avoid. That said, many people I've helped in the past and present have noticed that avoiding some of the most common trigger foods, including dairy, alcohol, and other foods containing hydrogenated fats like fried foods, result in more regular bowel movement, fewer cramps, and less bloating. I will also touch on what is called the FODMAP diet, FODMAP. Most of you probably won't have heard of it or used some of its techniques, but I used a combination of the FODMAP diet and mostly but not exclusively plant-based nutrition, which helped me in turn to get off the meds I was taking for my stomach and on to where I am now. And I can tell you, zero cramps, zero acid reflux, and a very healthy digestive system. So let's go on and take a look at the 12 food groups that can cause or exacerbate IBS. But before we do so, if there's anybody that you know might benefit from this video, please consider putting a little comment, tagging them in the post, or better still, sharing the information. We'll see you soon. Okay guys, let's look at insoluble fibre first off. But before I begin, let me just explain that there's two types of fibres found in foods, insoluble and soluble. Most plant foods contain both, but some foods are higher in one type than the other. Soluble fibre is concentrated in beans, fruits and oat products, whereas insoluble fibre is in whole grain products and vegetables. Fibre intolerance is different for different people, remember that. Foods rich in insoluble fibre may worsen symptoms in some people, but others with IBS experience no issues at all with these foods. Additionally, some foods that are high in soluble fibre, like beans, can cause issues for some people who have IBS. So you get the picture. What I'm saying here is you, that's you, are going to need to do some homework. Okay, number 2 on my list is gluten. I personally went 100% gluten-free. And I could certainly tell after a while when I had eaten food that contained gluten, I noticed that my symptoms worsened. So what is gluten? Well, simply put, it's a group of proteins that's found in grains including rye, wheat and barley. Now these may cause problems for some people with IBS. Recent research conducted by the American College of Food Intolerances showed that in around half of the people studied, gluten was an issue. So I've got some gluten alternatives for you. Number 3 is dairy. First off, many types of dairy are high in fat. So just simply by switching to a low-fat or non-fat dairy might reduce your symptoms. Secondly, from my experience, I know that many people have identified that milk is definitely a trigger for their symptoms. Though it is actually unclear if people with IBS are more likely to have true lactose intolerance or not. Once again, and I stress this, after some testing, if you have identified that dairy or milk products are causing uncomfortable digestive problems, consider switching to dairy alternatives. If you need to cut out dairy completely, then focus on consuming foods that are rich in calcium, and these are as follows. I highly recommend choosing other calcium-rich foods opposed to using supplements. Okay, number 4 is the dreaded fried food. High bad fat content may be especially hard on the system for people with IBS. Do you know that frying food can actually change the chemical makeup of the food itself, thus making it harder to digest? Again, this can simply exacerbate the symptoms. For a more healthy option, I recommend trying grilling, baking or stewing your favourite foods instead. Okay, number 5 is beans and legumes. I'm talking beans, lentils and peas are generally a great source of protein and fibre, but they can cause IBS symptoms. This is because they contain compounds that are resistant to digestion by the gut enzymes. Whilst beans can be a great bulk in stool to aid constipation, they can also increase gas, bloating and cramps. So what I suggest is that you try to avoid beans to see if that actually helps with your IBS symptoms. Or if you're going to use beans or lentils, try soaking them overnight and then rinsing them before cooking. This can also help the body to digest them more easily. Okay, let's look at point number 6, which is caffeinated drinks. I know that some people swear by their morning coffee for digestive regularity. But like all caffeinated drinks, coffee has got a stimulating effect on the intestines that can cause diarrhea. I generally coach on the premise that avoidance of such foods that contain stimulants, especially when anxiety is concerned as an underlying issue, are avoided. So my suggestion is if you need that energy pickup or a little boost, then consider eating a small snack or change your environment, like going for a short fast walk, and always look after your hydration. Okay, so let's look at number 7, which is processed foods. These foods tend to contain a lot of added sugar, salt and fat. Examples of processed foods include chips, pre-made frozen meals or ready meals, processed meats and deep fried foods. Now, eating too much of these ingredients can lead to health problems for anyone, not just exclusively to those who suffer with IBS. In addition, they often contain additives and preservatives that may trigger IBS flare-ups.
Listen carefully.
In a 2019 study, it was found that eating only 4 servings of ultra-processed foods per day was linked to a higher risk of developing IBS, along with cancer, obesity and high blood pressure. My recommendation is to make your meals at home and in bulk and then freeze them if you can, so that you've always got a supply of fresh, home-cooked nutrition. Okay, number 8 is sugar-free sweeteners. Remember this, sugar-free does not mean that it's good for your health, especially when it comes to IBS. Sugar-free sweeteners are common in and commonly used sugar substitutes include There are also artificial sweeteners which can have a negative effect on your health, and these can contain ingredients like and also sugar alcohols are very hard for the body to absorb, especially in people with IBS, causing So a simple reading of the ingredient labels on the sugar-free products will help you avoid these compounds. Okay, number 9 is chocolate and chocolate bars and high chocolate desserts. And these can trigger IBS because they're typically high in sugar and fat and commonly contain lactose and caffeine. Some people experience constipation after eating chocolate. There are some vegan options for chocolate lovers that people with IBS often find to be more tolerable. Okay, number 10 is alcohol. You're not going to like to hear this one, but alcoholic drinks are a common trigger for IBS sufferers. This is because of the way that the body actually digests alcohol. Alcohol can also lead to dehydration, which can affect digestion. I personally used to consume way too much alcohol and actually had a bad relationship with it, especially as an anxiety sufferer. I have chosen now not to consume any alcohol whatsoever, and I've been alcohol free for 18 months now. If you're looking at risk, beer is probably the most risky, as it often contains gluten. Wines and mixed drinks can contain high amounts of sugar. My suggestion is to limit the amount of alcohol that you consume, and if you choose to drink alcohol, then consider a gluten-free beer or a drink that's mixed with plain soda and certainly without artificial sweeteners or added sugars. Number 11 is garlic and onions. This is often a very tough one for anyone as they're a great flavouring agent to your food. However, They can also be very difficult for your intestines to break down, which can cause gas. Painful gas and cramping can result from raw garlic and onions, and even cooked versions of these foods can be triggers. And lastly, number 12, broccoli and cauliflower. Both of these are difficult for your body to digest, especially raw, which is why they may trigger symptoms in those with IBS. When your intestine breaks these foods down, it can cause gas and at times constipation, even for people without IBS. Cooking these vegetables makes them easier to digest. Try roasting or sauteing broccoli and cauliflower if eating them raw bothers your digestive system. So as I briefly touched upon earlier in the video, after studying, testing and analysing the trigger foods that made my own IBS symptoms worse, I then created a nutritional plan which closely followed that of the principles that are found in the FODMAP diet. I did use other strategies too, like fasting, juicing, souping and various other techniques. If you'd like a copy of the plan that I followed myself, then please get in touch. You can do so in a couple of ways. One, you can follow me on Facebook just by keying in my name, Stuart Ashley, or message me here on the comment section in this YouTube video. The FODMAP diet focuses basically on limiting certain types of carbohydrates, and when I say this next quote I'm referencing the Harvard Medical School. And that is that the small intestine cannot easily absorb certain foods that contain FODMAPs. They may cause bloating, gas and stomach pain. FODMAP foods include most dairy products, some fruits including apples, cherries and mango, and also some vegetables that include beans, lentils, cabbage and cauliflower, wheat and rye products, high fructose corn syrups and sweeteners such as sorbitol and mannitol. While avoiding these foods, you can still enjoy a huge range of other foods with a low FODMAP score. I'll give you some of these now. For starters, any foods that don't contain carbohydrates or are low in FODMAPs are allowed on the plan. These include fish and other meats, eggs, butter and oils, hard cheeses. So other healthful, low FODMAP foods that you can enjoy are as follows, and these include lactose-free dairy products, some fruits including bananas, blueberries, grapes, kiwis and pineapple, that's my favourite, some vegetables including carrots, celery, aubergine, green beans, kale, pumpkin, spinach and potatoes. There are more, guys. We can also use quinoa, rice, millet and cornmeal, firm and medium tofu, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds and sunflower seeds. The following of a low FODMAP plan involves both the elimination and reintroduction of certain foods at certain times and phases. It can actually be quite complicated to follow without the help of a nutritional advisor. So guys, this is what I'm here for, and if you're interested on more information on the FODMAP diet and indeed would like the plan that I personally created and followed myself, then just get in touch. Okay, so let's just quickly recap the main points from the video. First of all, it's important to remember that everyone's digestion and food triggers are different. Some people with IBS can tolerate foods that others cannot. I strongly recommend that you take the time to get to know your body and to learn which foods make you feel the best and limit those that cause you uncomfortable symptoms. I also suggest that you keep a food symptom diary, as this can really serve to help you to reference the foods to eat and those to avoid. So guys, if you need any extra help with your diet in relation to IBS or anything else, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. All that's left to say is thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video then please share or forward it on and subscribe. I'm relatively new to YouTube and would appreciate all your support. Thank you so much.